Cache-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Hey, we're glad you're joining us for episode 64 of the GeoGearHeads. I'm Daryl W4, back as usual with the Bad Cop, but also special guest Veronica Belmont to talk about where we see location-based gaming headed in the future. Next week we'll have another randomized show. The week following that, John Robb returns to talk a little bit about lights for geocaching.
Those are a couple of good shows coming up. And I especially love the randomized shows since they're just a mishmash of short topics, and many of them are submitted by you, our listening and viewing friends. Now, the best way to get us your comments, questions, or any type of feedback is to call our voicemail line. That's at area code 206-350-3647. We also love getting those at GeoGearHeads@Cacheamaniacs.com. Now, that can just be text, or you can record and send us an audio file. Of course, you can also find us on CacheFace, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, just about any social network that exists.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more than that, but I really do enjoy getting insights from our audience. We've received some really great stuff, including a question on tonight's subject. Before we get into that, I have a quick update on the GeoGearHeads 2013 Traveler Race. Bad Cop, you probably recall that we mentioned last week that the leader was only at 6 points, and that was a big event day, being Pi Day and everything, but I really didn't expect to see the changes that we got.
You know, Daryl, I was completely shocked. No Name Yet 202's bug jumped up to 30 points. That's double the amount of points of the number 2 Traveler, the coin that you put out a rescue request on to get moving. That's up at 16 points.
Yeah, I know. And there's a total of 6 entries that have at least a dozen points now. It really shows that this is open for anyone to still win. Anyone thinking about entering a Traveler who hasn't, there's still plenty of time to activate it and get those in. And of course, we'll include a link in the show notes for the instructions and everything else. But let's get into our topic for tonight, because I'm really excited to have a chance to talk about location-based gaming again, of course. And we're joined tonight by Veronica Belmont of Techzilla and the Sword and Laser and a whole bunch of stuff. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we know that you're a little bit into geocaching, but for those who aren't familiar with you and your work, can you kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself and your caching?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I host a cornucopia of different shows online. Techzilla being one, Sword and Laser being another. I also host a show called Fact or Fictional, which is a look at popular pop culture and the science and technology in your favorite TV shows, movies, video games, etc. Yeah, I do. What else do I do? Geez, there must be more. Oh, I just had a pilot on TV called Gizmodo, the Gadget Testers, that aired on BBC America this past Sunday. So hopefully we'll get to make more episodes of that. So yeah, definitely keeping busy. But I started geocaching a few years ago. I'm not a huge geocacher by any means, but it's something I've tried to keep up with over the years. And I'm only the owner of 2 caches right now. But when I travel everywhere, I try to get a couple of caches when I'm out and about.
Yeah, and it's a great activity for when you're out on the road like that and wasting those hours that otherwise would be spent sitting in the hotel room.
Yeah, definitely. Although you can look like a bit of a weirdo sometimes, I have to admit. It's been hard wandering around empty parking lots in the middle of the day trying to not look conspicuous.
Yeah, you know, I totally agree. I think we've all gone through that. But having played Ingress now and watching the people playing Ingress, geocachers look relatively normal. Oh, good.
That's good to hear.
Well, I actually kind of wanted to kick this off with something that came from a previous guest, Air Raid fan, via Google+, and he kind of gave us something interesting to think about, which is, its question was, is there life beyond geocaching? Muncie proves there is, but what if the satellites were turned off tomorrow? Then what?
We'd have to go back to writing down, like, coordinates, I guess, but then how would we know the coordinates? Maps?
Yeah,
I guess we'd have to get really good at reading maps.
Orienteering, letterboxing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here
Yeah.
was my first reaction to that question was, GPS, if that gets shut down, we do have all kinds of other systems like GLONASS that are coming online, and Baidu, I think it is, that the Chinese are developing. And of course, the European Union has their own that is coming out. And there's so much location, it's not very accurate, but just so much location that's coming in from the towers themselves.
Hmm.
I think the location being disabled is very unlikely. So my first reaction was, what happens when they make location illegal, like they do in some of the Middle Eastern countries?
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think it's Egypt.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So there's no geocaching in Egypt.
No, well, I think there is still
not legally.
geocaching. Right. Well, I think the thing was that you can't sell GPSs in those countries, and like any smartphones have to have the GPS actually removed to be sold there.
Really?
So yeah, that was one of those. Wow, we just can't really understand it, but I can see where this is a big fear for them, because think about the possibilities for terrorists in those high-risk areas for people to just take a cell phone. They're already using them to trigger bombs. Why couldn't you do something more with it? So they're just that afraid that they've outlawed location. And I hate to say it, but here in the U.S., we do seem to have a reactionary streak lately, and
Yes.
I could see if someone started really using it, a push to maybe try to outlaw use of location without a license or something. And yeah,
I'd be surprised. I don't think people would let that happen here.
no, I don't think it would happen. I don't think it would ever go anywhere. But I think that probably would be more likely than seeing all of our location services disappear.
You
I
think
would,
it'd be more likely for it to be turned off than see location services disappear? Isn't that kind of the same thing, though?
Well, I'm not saying turned off. I'm saying I could see location-based services being made illegal more than I could see them disappearing, because we do have so many different flavors. And if GPS were to vanish at this point, we do have a number of other alternatives. Their standard GPS receiver obviously wouldn't be able to work. But most cell phones being released now, if they have the GPS, will also include the GLONASS, and of course they have the location based off the towers. And I don't see this being outlawed, period. I should say that, yeah, I don't see that happening at all. For one, the authorities love having your location. So they're going to want you to have that and have it on so that they can figure out where you are if they do think you're doing something wrong. So I don't think that that's even a remote possibility. But I think that if we were to lose GPS, we do have enough other things that would tell us our location as well as GPS does now by the time GPS were to go away.
I think in worst case scenario, we'd look at what happened before they turned off selected availability. They may just, make the signal so inaccurate that you can tell where you are in a general area, but not narrow it down like they do today.
My coordinates are so inaccurate anyway, wouldn't really make a difference for me. They're like, your
Depends
cache
on
is
the
not even
device.
there at all. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm getting
no.
better. I'm getting better.
Well, Badcap, you were actually looking up some information on background for this, and you actually came up with the figure that smartphone sales could be more than 50% of all cell phone sales this year. And I think that really does speak to where location-based gaming is likely to go.
So it's really not a stretch to say almost everybody has a smartphone these days. And in every smartphone, they've stuck in some sort of GPS chip.
Well, even most of the not-so-smartphones have it.
Right.
And a lot of the tablets are including those now, and you can add that in. And that gives us the power to get into some more interesting applications beyond just geocaching. It really looks like the dream of what was Where I Go could become a possibility now that everyone has these newer, better devices, and that they are much more powerful, because that really does seem to have been one of the big limitations when Where I Go came out. Now, Veronica, are you actually familiar with the Where I Go platform at all?
I don't think so. It's not the same as the Wear suite of apps, is it? That has a little
No, no. The
magnifying
Where I
glass.
Go is Groundspeak's platform for developing location-based games, but it's a little bit weak. So
I did not know that Groundspeak had their own platform. That's interesting to learn.
yeah, it doesn't get mentioned a whole lot because they seem to have dropped it, but they really did have something interesting that never really went anywhere, and we keep hoping, and there are rumors that it will have a new version coming that is a little bit more interesting.
So is it like an open platform where anyone can develop using it?
Yeah, they do have their own builder, and there are some other builders that work better than their own builder, but it's pretty limited what you can do. The bulk of the cartridges, which is what they call their modules for it, don't support any audio. There's no support for video, and it's pretty much just static pages like a choose-your-own-adventure with some interactivity built in.
Oh, that's not very good.
No.
It was built in the days for Windows Pocket PCs. So
okay.
It's definitely dated by today's standards.
Yeah, and embedded on the Colorado series when that came out. Later it was available on the Oregon, and Garmin kind of got tired of dealing with all of the bugs and everything, shall we say. And there just wasn't really much support, so it never made it outside of really those two units. There was a short-lived series of Nuvies that also included support, but until Android and the iPhone, you really only had those two platforms, Pocket PC and the Garmin GPSs, that would support it at all. Now that they had Android, and Android was the first one to support it because it was open and hackers liked it, they came out with a third-party player. Then a few years later, I think, it might have only been a year, a developer out of the Minnesota area came out with a player for iOS, and Groundspeak actually purchased it from him, and it is now the official Where I Go player for iOS. And that has seen some updates, so that's one of the things that makes me continue to think it might still go somewhere. But this was such a rudimentary view of what we could possibly do with location-based gaming, it kind of wet our whistles, and nothing else seems to have even come close to the user flexibility of designing stuff around it. They're not really platforms, but they're either like geocaching, like the Munsies, like the Quest and Go kind of stuff. I'd like to see something that's more like this, where you could actually build your own maps or whatever into their platform.
Well, I mean, location stuff is being used in other ways too. I mean, we see a lot of augmented reality kinds of stuff happening in the gaming space. That's picked up a little steam over the years, and GPS data is obviously being used in uncountable kinds of ways. So, that information is still being used in very cool, very fun uses. But yeah, I don't know much about those particular that platform or what it's possible of.
Yeah. Well, and the big one that everyone's been talking about recently, largely because it comes out of Google, is Ingress. But they certainly weren't the first to be doing that kind of stuff. There was Code Runner, which is the first one I remember on iOS, and then Shadow Cities, which I've never played, has also been getting a little bit of attention too for being a similar type of gameplay.
Yeah, I looked at the demo for Shadow Cities and I go, this is Ingress. It's Ingress with magic instead of technology.
I like it. I actually want to check this out now. I don't have an invite for it, so I guess. Oh, and I don't even have an Android phone, so forget it.
Shadow Cities is for the iPhone as well.
Shadow Cities is for the iPhone? Okay, I'll check out Shadow Cities then. But Ingress is just for Android, it seems like.
Yeah, Ingress is just for Android.
Currently, but there is apparently a very not well kept secret that they are working on an iOS version of the app, but they have no timetable and it's not a priority. They have to get the server and the Android versions a little bit more stable, I guess, before they focus on iOS. So Ingress will eventually come to iOS is the plan. But, quite frankly, I'm not sure that I'm that interested in Ingress. I've leveled up all the way to 8 now, which does change the game. They keep making changes because it is still in beta, but it seems like it's a little too simple, or if you get into the story, overly complex. It's like they need to find some kind of balance in there before I'm going to get interested in. And it doesn't really fit a lot of what I like about geocaching, which is I can go out and do something whenever I want. For as long as I want, I can do something quick. I can do something, a little bit more involved. Where Ingress, it really seems like it's the kind of game that you have to get into. You have to spend a couple of hours a day if you're going to really be a competitor in the game.
Yeah, that's also what I like about geocaching, is that I can do it when I have the time. Unfortunately, we go hiking a lot, and my husband gets kind of irritated when I try to do geocaching when we're on hikes, because he wants me to disconnect and be focused on just enjoying myself. And I'm like, I am enjoying myself. This is how I'm enjoying myself. So any kind of ways that I can fix that problem. He's not interested in doing it himself, so I can't use that.
Yeah, that's always a problem, is when you have the non-cachers with you that aren't so interested in joining.
I've tried to get a few people interested, and I'm having trouble. I don't understand why, though.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of thing where a lot of people will look at it and go, yeah, that doesn't look interesting. And then if they happen to get out and actually find their first cache, then they get hooked.
Yeah. I know.
But there's so many who just don't see it. It's like they view it like golf, spoiling a good walk.
I see it as an adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's finding the treasure, on the pirate treasure map.
What's not to like about that?
Exactly.
People. But anyway,
Without
I
a doubt.
Yeah. But one of the problems that I have with geocaching is it doesn't have that revisitability that you get with a lot of these other games, which is great when you're looking to explore a new area. But if you're just looking for something, on your way home from work at the end of the day, just to do a little something to unwind or, whatnot, that's where geocaching, I've cleared out everything between the house and the office. So if I want to go find a cache, at lunch or something, I have to actually go quite a distance to do that.
Yeah, I've got all the ones around my office right now, too, and so I can't really do that. I used to go get them when I was walking we have to move our cars every 4 hours because of the street, metering, and I would go out and I would find a cache, and now I've gotten all the ones within walking distance, so it's frustrating.
Yeah, and that's where things like Ingress are really nice, because not only do they take you to some interesting spots that you didn't know about before, but you can go back and revisit. So, I had, when I was playing Ingress daily, a route that I would take to work, and unfortunately my 20-minute commute turned into an hour-and-a-half commute. But it was, I could go and play some games on the way to and from work. And I have met a lot of people in real life through the game, which is something else that I enjoy.
Well, that's not the game where there was a game that I saw that people were leaving graffiti tags around the city that you could only see if you looked at them through your phone. It was an augmented reality thing, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it was kind of cool because you could leave people little messages, scrawl them on a wall that you could only see if you looked at it through the phone.
Yeah, that is not Ingress. I know exactly what you're talking about because I saw some of the articles on it, but I never had a chance to look into it. And boy, I wish I had remembered what that was.
I'll just look up graffiti AR app. I should find it. Come on, Google, help us. Lair launches Stick2, an AR app to graffiti the real world.
Oh, I was just going to say, that sounds a lot like a Lair project.
Yeah, Stick2. That sounds about right.
And I was so excited when Lair came out, even when it was just for the original Android phone, the G1. and I didn't have one, of course, but that was one of the big things that I was actually looking forward to when I got a smartphone, was being able to play with layers. And when I got it, I was very disappointed because it was nowhere near as cool as they made it look in the demos.
Mm.
Well,
but it is such a cool platform, and that's probably as close as what we've seen to a platform that you could develop for, like Where I Go was, because you can create those layers to do whatever you wanted to, whether it be a tour or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like Niantic's Field Trip, which, none of these are games, but I love them for the discovery of new locations that I might not have known of.
That's
now,
cool.
Speaking of the Layer project, in doing research for this show, I was surprised to find Operation SC Revelation, SC meaning Splinter Cell. So Splinter Cell has done an AR game. And I hadn't heard of it before, using some of the layers, some QR codes, different things like that. So that's a way to get the big game companies involved in AR or location-based games of some sort.
Yeah, it'd be fun if they had like a, this is obviously a tie-in, but more tie-ins like that where you could visit places in the real world, or if it was a game that takes place in a real-world city like New York or San Francisco, you could go visit the locations and pick up clues about the game, or get like info on in-game events that weren't actually available to the people just playing the game. You can do so many kinds of cool stuff with those kinds of little side games or side missions on mobile apps.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the thing is, do you think the big game companies like EA or Bungie would ever break into something like this?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. Actually, there may have been a similar kind of... I think Halo did a... I feel like Halo did a tie-in, but maybe I'm wrong. Gosh, I really wish I could have... Oh, so the I Love Bees project... it was commissioned, it was created, hold on, let me look at this real fast. I Love Bees, according to Wikipedia, was an alternate reality game that served as both a real-world experience and viral marketing campaign for the release of Halo 2. The game was created and developed by 42 Entertainment. Let's see. I Love Bees was first advertised by a subliminal message in the Halo 2 trailer. Players who investigated the website discovered that the pages appeared to be hacked by mysterious intelligence. And then, so it goes on. It was like a web search. Like you had to go different places online. It was like, I don't really understand how it works. It was kind of along those lines.
Well,
so
kind of
people do real-world activities in order to get more information about the game.
Oh, very cool. But we have seen a few of the companies who just go out and do things like dead drops of even copies of their software. One of the things that I thought was pretty cool that Adobe tried and actually kind of tied into geocaching a little bit was a couple of years ago, maybe even like 4, they actually went and dropped copies of the Adobe Creative Suite, various versions of it, in different major cities, and they just posted little clues on their blog when they did it. And I was actually following that quite anxiously, hoping they would drop something in an area close enough to me, because it's cool to get free software like that. But they're not the only ones who have done that, and even Ingress has gone out and done tie-ins with dead drops where you have to physically find a artifact to use in the game.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So I think there is a lot of interest in doing that connection, and we've seen some of the stuff where they're doing like fly-throughs on Google Earth imagery, but that just to me seems a little bit boring. But it is still kind of location-based gaming. You're using actual locations to do it. I think it's a little bit more interesting with actually using some of the real helicopters and drone kind of stuff. They've got the Parrot, I know, does some of that, Griffin, and we came up with another one, Fighting Walrus Radio.
Fighting Walrus Radio.
It's a great name if nothing else, right?
Isn't it?
Turns your iPad or iPhone into a UAV controller.
Yeah, and then
That's great.
they have with these essentially what are just RV helicopters or trucks or whatever, some games
Hmm.
that you can actually play. And some of them will have the cameras on board. Other ones, it's just more like, go and set up stuff in the real world and fly it around. But I kind of think that that's pretty cool, being able to interact with physical objects controlled from, your smartphone or whatever.
That's cool. I've seen those AR drones, the Parrot AR drones in
Hmm.
action. They're pretty amazing. I would love to be able to control one with my iPhone.
Yeah, they're a little bit too big and costly for me to consider getting for myself, but those little AR drones have been just the most cool and versatile things I've seen, with a lot of attention paid to them after the earthquake in Christchurch, where they
Hmm.
were actually using those to inspect the buildings before the
Hmm.
inspectors went in, just because they were readily available, cheap. If they got crushed, oh well, you're out a few $100s, not someone's life, or thousands of dollars for a real inspection robot. And those
Yeah,
things weren't available.
that's incredible. That's a great use. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great use without a doubt.
And especially for people who are doing like more homebrew style AR drones, like having kind of like an open platform for developing controller software, I think is really cool too.
Oh, absolutely. And where I really get interested in this location-based gaming is all of this future hardware that we're going to see in the cool projects like the homebrew stuff is just the first start. And things like Google Glass, I actually kind of worry about a little bit, but at the same time, I'm really excited at what the possibilities could be with something like that. We keep looking into the phones right now for that augmented reality, but if you could actually just have it right there, it would
Hmm.
be so much cooler. Yet at the same time, people are already going blind
They're already
walking
scared.
around.
They're already freaking out. And I'm like, listen, all right, this is not, it's progress. I mean, people freak out over RFID. People freak out about
Hmm.
like infrared. People freak out about everything. And sometimes there is a reason to be freaked out. And other times you're stunting technology and you're stunting progress. And that drives me crazy. And I think we haven't even really had Google Glass in the real world yet. I mean, give it a little time for them to figure it out. Like, geez, I mean, come on. It makes me a little bit crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
people are distracted enough with smartphones as it is.
Hmm.
Now we have something right in front of their eyes that they can't take down, and they're constantly looking at it. And
That's true. But I think our
look at the people
brains.
I'm
Go
driving
ahead.
with. I don't
Hmm.
want that kind of distraction.
Well, obviously, you're not going to be using Google Glass when you're driving. At least I hope not. But who can
You
say,
say that
really?
now.
You say that. I say that now. That's true. But humans are very smart creatures. I'm hoping that we will have the ability to be able to integrate it into our life flow, our workflow, our existence at some point. I mean, so many science fiction big ideas revolve around the idea of being able to pull up information instantaneously, or see that extra layer of information, whether it's from some kind of implant, or it's from something like Google Glass, or it's just
Hmm.
built into our our wetware. It's that kind of stuff is it's on the horizon. It's coming. It's gonna happen. Like we are moving in that direction already. So having that instant sense of fear about it just makes me really frustrated.
Well, I think one of
I
the
have a lot of
problems
strong
that
opinions about it.
Hey,
Go
no
ahead.
problem. One of the problems, though, I think with the perception of Google Glass is people think this is going to be, something where it's in your field of vision, where really, if you've looked at any of the sample videos that have come out, it's really just this tiny little blob in the upper right corner of one eye.
For now, yeah. For
Yeah,
now.
so it's
Hmm.
not like it's that really interesting, and I can see it being awesome for things like geocaching.
Hmm.
You just walk toward the cache. It has the arrow map, whatever you want up there, maybe, and you just walk, and you don't have to be staring down at your GPS or smartphone anymore. And for that kind of stuff, it's really awesome. But it's not going to be enough coverage of the field of vision where you could impose like monsters or aliens coming down to attack. It's not that kind of capability. It is just a
That
little
would make a
info
great
center.
AR game.
Exactly,
It
and
would.
that's really where I'd like to see this technology end up, is something like that. And one of the ski guys,
I was
can't
gonna say,
remember who it was.
if you want to talk about Run Zombies Run, I mean, I saw that on the lineup. If you could actually see a zombie coming at you, that's
Yeah,
going to
there you
make you
go.
run a whole lot faster
Oh,
than
absolutely.
just hearing the commands in your earbuds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of this technology is being adopted by some of the sports and fitness guys, because it is giving them that information right there all the time, that you can't be sitting there staring at your phone when you're running or when you're biking or skiing.
Hmm.
And one of the ski guys did do essentially something like Google Glass, where they have maps being displayed in the goggles. And it has
That'd be
all
cool.
kinds of other stuff, for competition and training. This is the kind of stuff that really could be cool if it got cheap enough that we could do it. But at the same time, I'm just worried about people who can't text and walk right now. How are they going to play games and walk
Yeah.
around?
Exactly.
Well, maybe if their eyes are straight ahead, it'll be a little easier to focus on what's going on around them.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
Yeah, at least it keeps their head up instead of down.
Totally.
You see people walking on a beautiful sunny day looking down at a smartphone. Look up. There's a world around you.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
I think
We
all of us are, especially as cashers. As if it's a sunny day, we want outside, and we're going to be staring at our phones looking for that cash.
That's true.
Or, well, our GPSs as well. But I do, gamification of activity like Run Zombies Run is very intriguing, especially with as many people as are trying to get into better physical condition these days.
Hmm.
I see that as a really good benefit of gamification if it actually works. Yeah, I've played Run Zombies Run a couple of times, or Zombies Run, whatever that was.
Run
Zombies
zombie. Run zombie
Zombies run.
Zombies Run.
Is
Yeah,
it just zombies run?
Zombies Run. Yeah, I think it
Zombies
is.
run.
And it was kind of interesting, but without more interaction, because it's basically just an audio interaction and then, staring at the map if you want to do that. But if you're trying to run, you don't want to really be staring at the phone. Yeah, so it's interesting, but I don't know that it would really motivate me to keep going.
Well, you don't
So-
have to listen. You don't have to be looking at your phone. It's telling you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's audio only. You gather stuff while you're out running, and then you can use that stuff in your base when you get back.
Yeah.
See, I did not get that far,
Yeah.
or maybe it was just that I was playing too early a version, because I played back in version 1, the first release of it.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
maybe
there've been
that's
some
stuff that's been.
updates.
Yeah. So I'll have to play with that one again, because I like the concept, but I'm really looking for something where I can get out and be more active and enjoy multiple things depending on what I want to do to kind of change it up. So I like the idea of that kind of game, just to try to get people out and motivated.
I do too. You have inspired me to want to do more geocaching locally by myself without anyone else in the general vicinity. There's a lot I haven't found yet.
Oh, there always are.
And
There
there's
always
always
are.
more popping up. That's one of the great things about it. Maybe we get back to geocaching a little bit. One of the things that people keep bringing up is they'd like to do the indoor geocache kind of stuff, which I don't see Groundspeak getting into more than they are right now because of their fear of the commercial caches.
Hmm.
But there have been a lot of mall mapping kind of projects done in convention spaces where it does give, just on regular cell phones using Wi-Fi, a good approximation of where you are, and it's at least as accurate as GPS is. So I think that that's something that could come up. However,
Hmm.
I don't know how interested a lot of these people would be in listing geocaches. I would see someone like, let's say, Mall of America get into doing their own game.
Mm-hmm.
I could really see them getting into that kind of stuff. And Disney, of course,
Mhm.
has already done
Disney
some of
has.
this kind of stuff in their parks and
Oh,
resorts,
have they?
Hmm.
which
I did not know about
really,
that.
oh, if you ever have the chance, the one that I've played in Epcot World Showcase is now gone, but they've recreated
Oh.
it, or I shouldn't say recreated, but rehabbed it into now the Phineas and Ferb Agent P's Adventure. But when I did it with my niece and nephew, they just ate it up, and it was really cool because you're interacting with a cell phone. It's basically an old feature phone, sponsored by Verizon at the time. And you'd go to these different places, do different things, and it's really cool. Really got me excited as a geocacher because you're interacting with physical objects. At one spot, you had a statue that rose out of a pond. Another spot, smoke would come out of a tower. In the Germany pavilion, a train goes around a track when you hit the right buttons. And so that
That's
kind of
cool.
stuff was
Hmm.
really, really cool. And then they came up with another similar type of game in Alani, I think is the name of their resort in Hawaii.
Hawaii. Hmm.
Yeah, it's the Mini Hanu Trail, I think is what they call it, where you're
Mm.
running around with a PDA type device and you're interacting with these physical elements again. That kind of stuff just really gets me excited, to possibilities for geocaching if we had the kind of access to power and permissions that we need to actually go and play stuff like that.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
that's
could,
interesting.
I could definitely see something more like Munzie in the malls rather than a physical geocache. People are terrified enough of somebody loitering around that if it was just a QR code stuck to the wall somewhere, you could go scan it and move on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too for the mall scenario. I think
Hmm.
that makes a lot more sense, and it would probably be really easy to implement too.
Oh, I'm sure it would be. And now I'm starting to fear for our youth. What's going to happen when they decide to start replacing the Easter egg hunts with QR code hunts?
Well, it wouldn't be so bad if you put a QR code on the actual Easter egg. That
Yeah,
wouldn't
I,
be the
I could
worst.
just see them actually removing the Easter eggs, or
Mm.
oh, maybe they
It
have
would be
like cement
cleaner.
fixed Easter eggs in the future,
Aw,
just
that
with
is kind of
QR
sad.
codes.
That is a
Yeah.
little sad.
Egg-shaped
Progress.
QR codes.
It's progress.
Hey, it gets the kids more time on their smartphones and PDAs and stuff, which
But also outside.
yes,
Outside.
Outside.
yeah, and
Kids
well,
spend plenty time on their phones right now. We don't need to encourage them to spend more.
no, and that is one of the things that has been a big driving factor in location-based gaming right now is that effort to try to get people out into the real world again and away from the TV and smartphones.
Hmm.
But I'm not sure with the way that we've seen things going that you're really going to get them away from the smartphones. It seems like the movement has been back into that screen again. Just now you're out doing stuff. But hey, at least we're off the sofa.
Got to
Hmm.
work with it. Got to work with what you got.
Yeah, well, I like getting out and doing stuff in the real world, and it does seem a little bit weird anymore if I'm not holding my phone and playing some kind of game,
Sure.
or at least listening to podcasts, I guess.
There you go.
But like we mentioned before, right when we kicked off the topic, we do have some of these improved systems coming out, like GLONASS, that are going to give us so much better information location-wise, and they do have the ability to penetrate buildings better than GPS does. So even for just our plain old things like geocaching, I think we are going to see more accuracy. And I do wonder if that's going to affect our hides at all for geocaching.
As it is now, you're near a building. The GPS will say you're inside of it anyway. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, any improvement in location services, be it inside or outside a building, will help in geocaching.
Do you feel like, well, I've noticed I have a lot better My iPhone is okay with the GPS, but it
Hmm.
definitely does not seem to be the most reliable. Actually, the way that I tend to find my coordinates now for my own caches is that I place a pin on the map and then use Google Maps to actually get the real legit coordinates because my phone just doesn't seem to get close enough. So is that just a problem with the iPhone itself, or is that a problem with GPS, or would my higher tech GPS device work better at doing that for me?
Well, that's a combination of factors, and in some ways, the answer is yes to all of that. The newer GPSs, the dedicated units, do perform better
Hmm.
Hmm.
by far. Most of the problem that you see with things like the smartphones is they don't have very good antennas for the GPSRs. However, with GLONASS, we've actually seen it where some of these smartphones are outperforming some of the older GPSRs. So that GLONASS is really helping to improve the accuracy, and devices that weren't very good before suddenly become pretty good devices and so much smaller than a GPS, a dedicated GPS.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I've got the Earthmate, the PN40W or the
Hmm.
PN60W. I forget which model number.
Yeah, if
Um,
it's the W, it's a PN60, which would be a black GPS.
yes. Yeah. I don't actually use it that often because my iPhone tends to be so much more. I have it in my hiking bag in case,
Hmm.
poop hits the fan, but I don't often use it for GPS for geocaching. I tend to use my iPhone because even though the PN60
60.
Hmm.
has geocaching functionality built directly into it, and I can put my pocket queries onto it. It's just not as convenient or easy to use as the geocaching
Exactly.
app on my iPhone.
Yeah, and that's what many cachers have done. And there's a lot of people, and myself included, who will actually use both at the same time.
Mm,
But most of the time, I just go out caching on the smartphone because it's always there, it's right with me, and it's so much easier to do things like field notes right from the smartphone rather than doing it through the GPS.
but the battery life tends to take a
Oh,
pretty big hit, especially if you're out for a long time.
exactly. Well, and on the handheld GPS, you can get 16, 20 hours out of, a set of AA batteries. You're going to
Hmm.
find that that's so much more accurate. However, getting the information, to you is so much better on the smartphone. So if you
Right.
use a combination of that, I think you'll be very happy.
In good shape.
Absolutely. And there's always the additional batteries, whether they're in a replaceable batteries, but the iPhone doesn't have it. So I run around with a lot of the external batteries that I can just swap out and go for full days on just the iPhone.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea too.
Yeah, and I do hope that we're going to get better performance out of batteries in the not so distant future.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Oh, we can dream.
Indeed. I think, though, we should probably wrap up this edition of the GeoGearHeads. But before we do, Veronica, can you tell us where we can find more about yourself?
Sure. All of my projects are over on about.me/Veronica, and I'm also Veronica on Twitter.
And thank you very much again for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you much. Don't forget, you can always check the Cacheamaniacs website at cacheamaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cacheamaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cacheamaniac shows coming. Please consider making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cacheamaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2013 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with a Cash Media.